for our call with Chuck Losey. As always, please raise your hand and I'll call on you and I'll unmute your line. Let's get started with Max Ralph with Penn Live.
Hey Chuck, how are you?
I'm good, Max. How are you, buddy?
No, I'm doing great. I'm curious. We've seen through the first couple weeks of the year here that Drew is running more than he did in the past. What was the process with him through the offseason to kind of get him to that point where he was comfortable doing that and able to do it at a high level?
I mean, it's a combination of things. Drew was always a foundational strength guy. We've probably talked about that in the past, who was a little bit lacking on the front end of his career here. So his foundational strength has really gotten up to speed throughout his career. And then anytime you pair that with body composition, a player's ability to get rid of the excess body weight, build muscle mass, their ability to create force in the ground. It's the combination of those two things is just going to increase. And Drew just needed a little bit of time, and sometimes the timing takes a little bit longer for some than others. Um, and he had a really good cycle in the spring. He had a really good cycle in the summer. We knew his movement, like we've talked about in the past, has always been, um, I don't want to say a deficit of his, but it was an area that we knew we could exponentially improve. So I think the combination of those two things, and I tell you guys all the time, the consistency is the biggest thing with our guys, regardless of what our goal is. And Drew is one of the more consistent guys in the program across the board. So I'm happy that it's paying off for him and he's able to showcase it this year so far.
Let's go to Mark Brennan with 247.
Hey Chuck, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you.
Hey, can you take us through where Tony Rojas was kind of physically when he arrived on campus and how you've gotten him to where he is now because he just looks like an almost different human being.
Well, I'd be lying if I sat here and said that I did anything crazy outside of the box with Tony. Um, you know, our program is designed for when the guys step on campus day one. We have a very systematic approach with what we want to teach guys in those early cycles, what we want to accomplish. And it's by no means cookie cutter. Everybody does the same thing, but a lot of the objectives are the same. Um, and Tony, when he came in 195 pounds, 198 pounds, I forget, I can't even imagine him at 195 pounds now. He was very slight when he first came in, but he was a very tight skinned, um, skinny body with a lot of range. The framework was there. So we knew we could put muscle mass on him fast. It was just going to be a matter of, okay, can this kid's calorie intake match his work production and the way he worked? Then it becomes a number game for the guy as far as putting muscle mass on. So Tony really abided well. He's always been a great worker for us. But then I got to give him a ton of credit too, with abiding by the guidance that he got from Leanne Loudon, our team nutritionist. Nutrition plays such a big part in getting these guys' bodies up to speed, and Tony just excelled at both. It happened pretty fast. You guys saw it the first year. He was almost 220 pounds in a blink of an eye. And then over the course of this past year in 24, he's really started to fill out. And I'm a firm believer that a lot of times these guys have plenty of growing to do. By the time they step on a college campus, everybody looks at them and they say, wow, these guys are so advanced. And they are, no doubt about it. But a lot of them still have another growth spurt to go, especially when it comes on to putting muscle mass. Their hormones are going crazy. Their ability to produce high levels of testosterone, and you just never know how the body is going to react to that. And Tony just blew up. So,
Let's go to Greg Pickle with On Three.
Coach, thanks for your time today.
thanks, Greg. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. I'm curious, kind of in that same conversation, when you go back to year one, what the balance was for Luke Reynolds, Cooper Cousins, and Dwan Lane, three guys who have played for you as freshmen, to not overload them too much in their first, however many months on campus, but also get them ready for the physical part of playing as a true freshman. So those three guys, what do they have in common that allowed them to do that?
All of them, I'll say this, they have a very similar work ethic. They have that trait, that common trait working amongst the three of them. You never really know. Cooper we knew was going to be up to size. That's a tougher position to play early at. So we knew he had the demeanor. Um, we just didn't know whether or not his skill set could actually get up to speed by the time the first season rolled around for him. So everybody had a little bit different situation. But the guys, there's such, it's such an advantage now for those guys to come in January. Um, and when you come in and you're indoctrinated with a good group to work with, you could tell early on with all of those guys that they were determined. They really wanted to contribute this year. And that's how they approached the work every day. Um, Now, Luke, I probably had a little bit more reservations on because he was skinnier, much like Tony. He put that weight on fast. Um, but he's put it on fast and he's put on good weight. My biggest concern is always those guys being able to move with it efficiently at the skill positions, at the combo positions. Um, and he's done it. He's done a great job. But honestly, the biggest common trait between them is their demeanor. You could tell from day one, week one, that these guys were determined and they really, really wanted to contribute in year one. Not saying that everybody doesn't. I think everybody has an idea and they come into it. And then they get into the workouts in the spring with the other guys and they're like, wow, well, wait a second. This is real. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to. And it kind of gets them second guessing on whether or not they're actually going to be ready. There was never any second guessing with that group of guys.
Appreciate the time, Chuck. When you look at Alonzo Ford, he's someone that we did not see at all last year because of injury. And, he's someone that we've seen be physically impressive this year. I know he's given a lot of credit to the strength staff for helping him get there. What did you see from him behind the scenes to get to this point?
Well, his biggest thing was his health, obviously. I mean, we knew he could play. He wouldn't be here if he couldn't play ball. We knew he could play ball. We knew he was a strong kid, coming from ODU. Alonzo's biggest thing was just he needed to learn how to work. Some of these guys don't quite understand the consistency involved and how day in, day out your approach has to be the same. And that was his biggest learning curve when he got on campus. Once he really got into the system, learned the expectation, okay, this has got to be, I gotta live this thing. He was great after that. His injury was just unfortunate timing last year. But with regards to when he's healthy for us, Alonzo's a great worker. He is a bull in the weight room for us, and he's still got a long ways to go too. I'm excited about his future with the program. I think Alonzo Ford can be he's already an impact player for us, and he's playing some really good ball. But I think his best ball is way ahead. I think there's still some things from a performance standpoint that we can work in here with regards to body composition, body weight, lower body mobility. I think those are all areas that we're going to improve as his career goes on. He's only going to get better and better. So I'm really happy and I'm excited for Alonzo that he's having some success on the field right now because he's worked his butt off coming back from that injury.
Seth Engel, statecollege.com.
Hey Chuck, thanks for your time today. We talked to Coach Franklin last night, and he said there's been more bumps and bruises this year than maybe in recent years. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, what exactly do you attribute to an uptick in injuries? And is that just football being a physical game, or is there a way to avoid these types of things?
I mean, my number one priority is always with these guys is to bulletproof them as much as I can. That's one of our main training objectives. This is my 21st year in the profession, and you have those years sometimes where your injury rates are higher than others. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think the game just continues to get bigger. It continues to get faster. Um, I think we practice aggressively. We train aggressively. Um, and I can't really, I'm not going to sit here and pinpoint one thing. I just know that if I ever do see some type of pattern, and that's my job is to look for patterns, that I got to do my best to address them as soon as I can. And the best way to do that is to be proactive on the front end and just try and get ahead of this as best we can. But to answer your question, why there's more this year as opposed to years past, I can't really say at this point.
Let's go to Audrey Snyder with The Athletic.
Hey Chuck, thanks for your time. You guys had a bit of a unique situation in that you got Max Granville in kind of right before camp. What kind of progress has he made, and what was it like trying to get somebody into the training cycle at that point in the year?
It was different because I'm not used to that. With the way that college football is now, I'm so used to having these guys since January and having all that time to prepare them for the season. So I was legit worried about Max when he came in, but I have my notes sitting here. He was going to be a guy I mentioned to you. I'm not worried one bit about that guy. Like, he is an outstanding young man across the board. Work ethic, personality, demeanor. I'm super thrilled to have him a part of the program, and I think he's going to have a big, big future here. But he looks great. He works his tail off for me in here. He's positioned himself. He's gained respect with his teammates with the way that he practices, the way he conducts himself. I'm really excited, but I would be lying if I weren't apprehensive about. I was a little worried at first on how fast it would take him to get up to speed with the guys, but he's thriving in the system and he's doing a great job. Really happy he's a part of the program.
Go to Johnny McGonigal, Penn Live.
Chuck, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Darari Nelson moving from safety to linebacker. James said during preseason camp or in August that part of it was genetics. He was fighting it a little bit, the weight, and just to stay at safety. Him moving to linebacker, what have you kind of seen from Darari from a body composition standpoint, from a filling out standpoint in that position?
Yeah, he just looks so much more natural in there. He's a 200. He came in. He was already a 210, 212-pound kid when he came in here. So we knew he was a big safety. And it's rare that I actually get guys in the program where they're almost big and I got to take them back down. But I'm happy with the move because I think that with just the way he moves, it's just better suited for him. And any type of limitation that he does in having movement, he doesn't really get exposed near as much at the linebacker position. Got a little bit of stiffness in his lower body, which we continue to address. But at the same time, he's 219 pounds right now. He's probably going to be 225 in a blink of an eye, and he's playing fast out there. We knew the kid could run when he got here. I'm excited for him. I think it's been a fantastic move for him, fantastic move for the team, and it just fits our personnel. So it's kind of nice to have a guy where you can just kind of let him go from a body weight standpoint and say, okay, well, let's see what your body does from here. And that's where we are with him right now.
Go to Mark Brennan.
Chuck, I appreciate you taking a note or taking the time to get notes down. So with that said, who are some of the other guys on your notes that you that you would like to tell us about?
Well, I figured you guys may ask me about some of the developmental of the younger guys in the program. So let me give you a few guys. Max Granville was one in there. Another young guy I'm excited about. I think Xavier Gilliam is doing a really, really outstanding job. I think he's going to be a big-time player for us. Super impressed with Kenny Wosley. coming out of the Pittsburgh area. Really happy with him. He's turned into a good worker for us. Tyseer Denmark is doing a great job. Um, Let me see. I think Egan Boyer, you guys have seen him at a practice. We've obviously got some work to do with him and his body type. He's going to be a 300-pounder eventually. But I'm excited for him, and he's doing a really good job. He's doing everything he needs to be a big time player for us down the road. So those were a couple guys that I marked down for you.
Go to Max Ralph.
Chuck, Nick has kind of gotten, I don't know if you want to say reintroduced himself as the guy who's breaking those 40-yard runs that we didn't necessarily see this
Not to
year.
me yet, Max.
Maybe to those who haven't seen him like us, but
People don't pay attention then.
right. But what did he do in the offseason to kind of get to that or stay in that kind of stratosphere, I guess?
We don't do anything special with Nick. I mean, we're aggressive about our speed work. I'm aggressive from the 128th guy on our roster all the way down to the number one guy on our roster. We train speed and we train it aggressively. Now, Nick's biggest thing is, he is such a tightly bound individual. We definitely do our share of soft tissue work with him and take care of him to keep him healthy. Nick is fast. Nick was fast 2 years ago. He's fast last year. He's fast right now. So, we talk about that consistency thing, especially when you talk about a metric like speed. People think, well, I want to get faster. I want to get faster. Well, when it comes time to running fast and being really consistent about it, people start to waver. Well, I'm starting to feel a little tight in this. Nick doesn't waver. He runs right through it. And he's chipping away. It's very, very important to him to chip away at that 100th of a second, that 10th of a second. So nothing's changed with Nick. He just continues to attack everything the way that Nick Singleton does.
We got time for two more. Let's go to Daniel Gallen.
Appreciate the time today, Chuck. You mentioned Gilliam, but you've got three other true freshman defensive tackles in DeAndre, TA, and Liam. I know they all came in at different points physically. How have you seen those three guys adjust and develop to play a position that is a little more physically demanding?
Well, it's tough, especially in the Big Ten, to play the defensive tackle position. I mean, it's tough to play in there when you're a 270, 280-pound guy. And that's kind of why I mentioned X over the other two right now, is the other two are very much developmental from a size standpoint. Now, they are very imposing. All three of them are imposing individuals, TA and Cook. They have length, they have range. But right now, they're lacking the mass to really get in there and bang with the big guys, especially in this league, as opposed to X, where he's sitting in there. He's already a bricked up 300 pounds right now. So he's just able to sustain and give it a little bit more than those other two guys.
Last question, Audrey.
Chuck, we haven't really talked to you much about Corey Smith since he got here. How is he kind of handled? And obviously, he was coming off of some injuries last year at the end of his high school career.
He's been great. I'm happy. He continues to get better and better and better. I think Corey is one of those young men who college is a really new experience to him. Everybody wants to focus on football, but it's not just football. It's life. It's balancing classes, balancing treatments, balancing different appointments throughout the day. And from the summer up till now, Corey has done a really good job of learning to balance all those things in his life, while putting his all into what we're doing in this building and making himself into a good football player. So I'm happy with Corey. He does some outstanding things out there on the practice field. His change of direction, his explosiveness, he's ahead of the curve there. We're going to probably have to put a little bit of mass on him to help him sustain this league. We're always going to get our running backs faster, but he's off to a really good start. And I'm happy with him. He's a good young man. He's attentive. He listens. Um, I'm happy. I really like Corey.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chuck. Appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining us.